And welcome to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. We've got a relativistic particle situation here. We've got some particles that have showed up following a solar flare at the Earth only about 40 minutes after this solar flare here. Was an M5.5 class flare. As forecasted, we've got another sunspot which has risen in the southeast. Here's the top view ecliptic plane field plot. We're going to go over magnetic data, sunspots, and so on. So here you can see Earth is now in a North Pole current sheet shown there in green. No changes expected to come in that anytime soon. We'll keep you posted. And here's the GOES magnetometer over the past 3 days, and we saw a pretty big spike here in the magnetometer just after midnight today on January 20th. Then a divergence, and now it looks like they're converging. The GOES 16 and GOES 17 measurements there. Those are the red and blue lines respectively. Here's the line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. Solar magnetogram also shown on that. And let's check the coronal hole situation. We did see a transequatorial North Pole oriented coronal hole here rotating in, and it looks like indeed it is still there. You can see that shown in green. It also shows the solar B field in blue. And here's the 193 angstroms view. You can see that North Pole coronal hole slowly making its way around to the Earth-facing zone. Also, this coronal mass ejection and solar flare here. That was an M5.5 class solar flare, creating some shock waves. There was a second coronal mass ejection. The second one might be Earth-directed. The first one was not. So here are some close-ups. That's sunspot 2929, which has been performing at a little higher level here over the past couple of days. Here it is in ionized carbon. This is 1600 angstroms. You can see, interestingly enough, looks like a bunch of carbon got created right there on the surface of the sun. It's nuclear fusion happening before your very eyes there. When that turns white, that's going from not a lot of ionized carbon to a lot of ionized carbon. One more time. And there's that flare. Flare probability remains high here. Don't be surprised to see another flare from sunspot 2929 or 2930. Now they are showing this new sunspot, which will be known as 2934, as beta gamma class. It's not actually beta gamma class, it's alpha class as far as I can tell. And we'll show you high resolution images of that in our bonus features video. Make sure you check that out. youtube.com/smashamash/videos. So here's this solar flare again, an M5.5 class flare. Major activity there in terms of photon outputs. And it's caused some proton inputs into the earthly system. So here you can see this proton event began at only about 6:40. So it only took about 40 minutes for those relativistic particles to arrive. Peak flux was around 6 o'clock this morning on the 20th, and the protons showed up at about 6:40. So those protons moving at like 20% the speed of light there, according to my back-of-the-napkin math. Next, the real-time solar wind, pretty uneventful here. We see a high-speed coronal hole wind stream subsiding. Current conditions are pretty diffuse and pretty nominal here. Solar wind speed at 473 kilometers a second. Solar wind density only 5 protons per cubic centimeter. So here's your radio blackout that occurred from that solar flare over Western Australia and most of the Indian Ocean. And then only less than an hour later, a continued radio blackout happening, especially at the South Pole, but also some more minor high-frequency radio blackouts at the North Pole. You see, when these relativistic particles show up, they cause the D layer of the ionosphere to absorb your radio signals as opposed to refracting them. And when you see a red blob there, that is the complete high-frequency radio blackout moment caused by those solar X-rays. We can expect this southern polar region radio blackout to continue on for several days. That's typically what we see when we see these proton events. So the KP index is only at 1. That's a measurement of global geomagnetism. Let's look at the geospace over the past 4 hours. Everything pretty homogeneous here. And those fast-moving particles don't represent a huge amount of particles, but they make it all the way into Earth's field-aligned currents. So that was 4 hours of data in the geospace, Earth's magnetic moment from space. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground over the past 4 hours. And this scale here is in nanotesla. Next, we like our viewers to be oriented to what's going on in the solar system, not just on the sun, but the rest of the planets and so on. Here's where things are currently located. We'll advance this 1 week as Mercury swings past. Here's where things will be in a week on the 27th. Here's a star chart of what's going on above my head. It's from in-the-sky.org. If you want to make your own, just click All Sky Charts, put in your location, and you can see what's going on above your head. If you're up before dawn, you might see the Mars and the Venus. You might see Mars and Venus rising ahead of the sun. Next, some coronal mass ejections have occurred associated with that solar flare. The view from stereo A makes it obvious. We've got some old data on the LASCO C2. We'll show it anyway. The initial coronal mass ejection likely to miss Earth to the northwest. However, there is a second one that is still unfolding. This one could be more earthly directed, although I would doubt it. If I had to guess, which I don't, I would guess it would be off to the west. So we may make another video about that, especially if it's Earth-directed. Also, did you check out our cosmology segment yesterday? We made one of my favorite cosmology segments we've ever made. Features information about a black hole candidate, a gamma ray source, as well as the galactic core of our closest major galactic neighbor, M31. Here's a teaser. But first, the astronomy picture of the day. So this is a great nebula here. You can go check it out yourself at apod.nasa.gov. I believe that's called the Pillars of Creation. Some early Hubble imagery, I believe, there. And there's the zoom out. This is known as NGC 7822, the new general catalog, a nebula in the constellation of Cepheus. Great imagery there, apod.nasa.gov. So here's our cosmology segment from yesterday. If you didn't check it out, check it out. And it features an interesting zoom. If you want to know what that is, check it out. And we've got pushing 250 videos in our cosmology segments. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check out our bonus features as well. We also do meteorology segments and some various other types of videos on the channel. Here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news, youtube.com/smashamash/playlists. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists.